every day for probably a year straight, I used to wake up in the morning at 3 in the morning, drink a glass of water, and listen to Adele until she made me cry. I could not look at a lot of these emotions that were causing me to stall in recovery, causing me to be endlessly triggered every day over and over in turmoils of emotional spirals because I could not let myself look at some of these painful emotions like fear and guilt and shame and hate and rage and injustice, whether that's a feeling or not. And every time I got close to looking at those feelings, I realized, how uncomfortable they were gonna be to actually feel and not just think about or look at. And so I refused them, put up fierce walls because I didn't want those emotions to come anywhere near me. But it was really preventing me. I kept getting to the point in recovery where I would end up at a spot that I knew if I could just push through this feeling, I could reach this breakthrough that I could taste on the other side. But I put up such fierce walls that I would not go through those emotions. And I just, one day I'm like, listen, this, if I continue like this, I'm never going to progress. And I know what that looks like because I know what people are in the world. I know people in the world who also have never pushed past some of these emotions. They refuse to let themselves feel. And I know what their life looks like and how they live. And I didn't want anything to do with that because it was so hard to watch. And it was a life full of such suffering and such lying. I didn't want any part of that. So I kind of just fucking picked up my nuts and I was like, look, that's not the life I want. I really only have two options. I have that life or I have a life that I get to create by following my heart and the truth somehow in this direction that feels true, but I don't know why. And so I thought, how can I get better at sitting with these emotions? And that's where I just kind of found my way to Adele. And I love Celine Dion. Celine Dion's in my top 5 probably ever. I've been listening to Celine Dion since I was in middle school. Love her voice. Love the way that her music feels. But to me, it's like cool feminine. Whereas Adele, to me, is like raw feminine. And I knew emotions are feminine. Not feminine in the sense of they're girly, but of the masculine and feminine energies that make up every human being and their unique balance of them. The feminine side of your being is emotional. The masculine side is logical and rational. This has nothing to do with gender. This is the way of the world. So I knew, I got to access the feminine side of things to get into my emotional being. And the best way to do that is to go through the raw feminine to get me there. And that was Adele. So I would sit on the couch and I'd drink a glass of water and I'd put my earbuds in and I would close my eyes and I would just breathe. And I had 4 to 5 Adele songs that just would fucking rip me open. That fucking Easy On Me song was sometimes I just needed to play that in the morning and I was crying already. Because crying was the thing that I refused to do. I still struggle with it. I tell myself now that I don't need necessarily to cry. That's not really how I express my emotions. And that is true. I'm just not a crier. But I refused to cry when the urge would arise. I blocked that so fiercely. I thought it was, men don't cry, men aren't weak, men aren't this, men aren't that, fucking blah, 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 fucking blah. You know what I mean? All the male norms around crying. And I needed to be strong because that's what I was trying to do for my recovery process. So to me, crying was a direct threat to my orientation of trying to be strong for myself. It's like those two couldn't coexist in my mind, which is fucking way wrong. And so I would sit there and listen to Adele and I would just let it take me however it wanted. I didn't press the song and be like, oh, I'm gonna cry and get ready to cry and make up this whole performance. It was almost like I resisted it until it was undeniable. Where I would listen to the song, be into the music. I've been a musician. I love music, so I would get into the music and I would tune in to the feeling of the song and I would just let it take me wherever it wanted. Whenever the tears started to well up, like that. I didn't fight it. I didn't try to amplify it, because people do that. I just let it be as it wanted to be. And I would let it take me through these emotions that I refused to allow myself to have on my own. And it was like exposure therapy. And over a year, I just got so comfortable inside those uncomfortable emotions. I was alone in my own, fucking duplex room thing. Nobody saw me. It was early in the morning. I didn't have to go like talk to people afterwards. Soon after, it was my own private space where I could explore these emotions that I was afraid of allowing myself to feel. And I got better and more comfortable at feeling them. I realized that they were not going to kill me. But I really think that that's a huge fear that people have with some of these really uncomfortable emotions, is that if they allow themselves to be consumed by this discomfort of whatever emotion, that eventually it will get so intense that they cannot handle it. And we don't know what that means, so we think that we'll collapse. We think we'll die. We think we'll explode. We think we'll snap, have a psychotic break. Something drastic that will fracture us beyond repair if we allow this discomfort to rise to where we think it will. And so I learned that that's not the truth. And that was massive. It was a massive, revelation that even the most uncomfortable of emotions does not kill you, does not break you. It just is extremely uncomfortable. And that's a really good thing to know. For me it was, because then I stopped. My biggest fear, my biggest underlying fear was wiped away, and it was that feeling of death. This is going to be so overwhelming that I'm not going to be able to handle it. And I was proving to myself, rep by rep, day after day, that this does not kill me. And once I learned that, and that solved a huge part of the puzzle, but then I began to learn my version of those emotions. What does my shame look like? What does my guilt look like? What does my fear, my hate, my rage, my sadness, what does that feel like for me? Not why does it feel like that, or why is it that this is why it is, but just what does it feel like? Where in my body do I feel when I'm sad? And what does that feel like? Does it feel like whatever in my stomach? Do my muscles tense? How does my body react to this emotion? And I began to, learn the signatures of my emotions over time. What rage really feels like in my body, where it shows up in my chest, in my arms, in my wrists, in my jaw, in my muscles, in my stomach, in my heart. What does it feel like? And I began to learn the unique signatures of my emotions. And when I had the revelation that emotions don't kill me, and I had been able to map out the emotional signatures of all the emotions that I could have, that I was afraid of, it equipped me to monitor myself in real time. In the present moment, I was able to monitor and be aware of what was happening to me. I would go into any setting and I would notice, because I've built this library of proof. Oh, I'm about to get very angry, or anger is coming on, because I know what it feels like in my stomach. I know what it feels like, blah, blah, blah. I can feel it start to come. And then there becomes, the tango of dealing with emotions in public. And that's a very interesting realm to explore, because now in private, you can just express them however you want. But how do you express and allow emotions to wash through you in real time? And that was another huge lesson that I began to learn, and it was really the way that I learned how to set boundaries. Because everybody talks about boundaries, but they don't tell you what a boundary does. And a boundary is your own individual protective, intentionally protective devices that you place around people to secure the emotional processing thing, your processing of emotions. And so, like, a good boundary isn't I'm protecting my peace. It's no, I notice that I'm beginning to get angry, and anger is coming on. What do I have to put in place to both stop whatever the assault is, confront the assault, or give myself the room to process this? Because it's not just about, shutting other people down. Sometimes it's about, again, it's not about denying the emotion or trying to hide the emotion. It's about using the emotion. So like in the instance of anger, if I notice I'm angry, and I notice I'm angry because I feel like this person is doing some injustice to me, well, that anger becomes my strength to enforce my boundary against this person, whether that means standing up to them, whether that means disagreeing with them, whether that means walking away from them, accepting a small bit of public humiliation by walking away from somebody because you know that your anger is going to rise if you stay in this place, and that you need to remove yourself before the anger gets too much, because that's the thing, emotions aren't always all at full blast all the time. They rise, and so if you can catch them early, there's not as much to process, and the way that you process them doesn't show up in such extreme ways as it does when the emotion is at full blast. So you catch the emotions early, you can remove yourself and process this small bit of rise of that emotion. And you can extrapolate that, it could be full blast. And so what does that mean? It means you need to leave, or it means you do whatever. It means you need to stand up. It means that full blast needs to enter your courage system. The fuel, the fire from that anger needs to give strength to your courage to stand up to somebody and say, stop, or no, or I disagree, or you're hurting my feelings, whatever it is. That is good communication. It is being knowledgeable about your emotions so that you can show up in the world in a way that gives you the space and the freedom to be who you are without running, avoiding, or minimizing. And that is, emotional intelligence at its finest. And if you can strive for emotional intelligence over understanding, over therapeutic knowledge, over the forgiveness or understanding of your past, if you can strive for emotional knowledge, it is the tool that will help you today moving forward. Because that is my problem with things like therapy and other stuff like therapy, is that they take you and make you look back, make you understand the past. That is fine, but it doesn't give you any tools for right now and how the past has impacted you right now moving forward. Emotional intelligence is a tool for moving forward.